faces. We intend for the next hour to have a really fruitful and rich conversation. But before we orient ourselves on who we are, who the NOAF is, we wanted to kind of center today's conversation on something really particular. We have a very special guest who has joined us today. We will go into a little bit more about her life, but to us, she's the perfect person to tell us what we're seeing on our screen. Miss Leona.
Hello, everyone. What we're seeing now is an image of what took place on November 14th. An image of a little girl being escorted to school by the United States Federal Marshals. This little girl just happened to be Gina Gunn, but we just lost her like a year ago. And she was the model for this image at that time. But it was just an image of what was happening on November 14th, 1960.
November 14th, 1960.
Mm-hmm.
And this is Norman Rockwell's attempt to kind of capture
Right.
that day.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Mm. Wow.
This is the image that he used, but there was another image also that had 3 girls in it. Yeah.
Amazing. All right, we're going to come back to that, but we just really wanted to center ourselves with starting with that painting. And thank you, Miss Leona. We're going to come back to you shortly. But we are the New Orleans Architecture Foundation. We're happy to launch our 2020 book club. We were so thrilled that our first iteration of our book club that launched last year did so well. We made some new friends, many of whom are with us tonight, and we just had to continue this really special set of programming. So thank you for your attendance. This book club is going to be centered on the Yellow House, and the author is Sarah Broom. There is a snapshot of her book that Mike grabbed at the bottom here, and you could read that, but essentially it says, "The Mythology of New Orleans, that it is always a place for a good time, that its citizens are the happiest people alive, willing to smile, dance, cook, and entertain for you, that it is a progressive city that's open to whimsy and change, and can sometimes suffocate the people who live and suffer under the place's burden, bearing them within layers and layers of signifiers, making it impossible to truly get at what is dysfunctional about the city." That's a lot to unpack here, but certainly we're going to at least try. So we have been partnering with local bookstores, more importantly, Black-owned bookstores. We urge you to buy your books from Community Book Center. It's based on Bayou Road in the 7th Ward. And we've been partnering with the owner, Ms. Vera Williams, from the beginning. You can order your book online from her. We have her website listed here, or you can go in person on Bayou Road and give her a ring, and she'll have a book for you. So just wanted to make that plug. So next, we really just wanted to introduce ourselves. I'm Melissa Lee. I'm a NOFA board member. I am a planner. I am a community organizer. I'm a reformed public servant. And I am happy to partner with my dear friend and colleague, Mike, who will introduce himself as well, and will serve as tonight's moderators.
Hi, everybody. I'm Mike Grody. I am the current, I guess I'm treasurer of the NOAF. I am an architect by sort of training. I am a constructor by, I guess, birth, and today I'm a real estate developer. And I have the greatest honor of my career and probably my life to be working with Leona Tate and her team on a project that we're going to talk about today. I also am really bad at playing soccer, and I'm really, really bad at catching fish. I am a husband and a new dad to a 16-month-old who may make a cameo appearance at some point today. So I'm very happy to have all you join us today. Nick?
That's me. So I'm up next. What Mike didn't tell you is apparently he was an amazing quarterback too. I learned that like 2 weeks ago. So I thought that was interesting, Mike.
Sorry, I did something.
Oh, can everybody hear me? Right, great.
Yeah, loud and clear.
So I'm Nick Marshall. I'm in the upper left-hand corner. As you can see, I tried to share my video too. I'm looking over here because I wrote this out, but my job right now is just to introduce the board of the foundation to everybody that's on the book club. Next to me on the picture you see is Paula Peer. Paula's been with the foundation the longest time, and she's largely responsible for everyone you see. And Mike is trying to give me a bumpy road here. I think he's the MC. Melissa, as everybody knows, she just introduced herself, but there's a few things that she left out, and one is that you'll find that we rely heavily on Melissa for understanding empathy and being the true voice that the foundation wants to project to our community. Shelby Russ, next to her, is the principal and owner of AOS Interior Environments. And he's the longest continued non-architect board member on the board, and we rely on Shelby heavily to mentor the board through the kind of political field of New Orleans. Shelby also is a huge art fan and believes in design and really in music that it can enlighten all of us through those venues. Down the bottom below me is Sarah Bush, who is a director at Atlantis Construction, the largest owned women general contracting firm in the city. And Sarah brings a full awareness of the generative issues that we deal with, and her voice is really strong. And she's another business leader that we rely on. There's Mike next to the map. And my little tidbit about Mike was that he's a quarterback of some kind, and I still have to see him throw a football, but apparently he's really good. Mike has introduced me to podcasts, so I'm not a big podcast guy, but I do love music, obviously. And I listened to his podcast, so I learned these things about him that I never knew before, including, how he met his good friends playing football. I thought that was interesting. Wes Michaels, principal at a distinguished international landscape firm, Spagman Moss and Michaels. Wes, and I don't remember if he remembers me saying this last time, but he still is. Wes, we have deemed on the board as the possibilities guy. Wes takes everything that we throw onto the table at our board meetings that we feel like are roadblocks and turns them into possibilities for us to turn over and to think through and really understand how to perform outreach. Beth Jacobs is next. I can't say enough about Beth. She really keeps things on track for us. Beth has the dubious honor of being the board secretary for I don't know how many years in a row now, and no one appreciates that more than I do, actually, because writing down things and keeping things on track, making lists and not letting, honestly, myself be too scatterbrained about what we're doing is invaluable to the foundation. At the bottom, I don't know if everybody knows George Costanza, but he's the placeholder for new board members. So we used this last time, and I think it's a good foil for this time. Everybody on the 17 people that are here are potential board members, anybody that's interested in what we're talking about, anybody that's interested in the things that we're bringing to light, we would love to engage you and love for you to be part of the conversation, not just in this venue, but even larger venues when we sit down and try to unpack the things that I think so eloquently Mike found in that quote in the beginning from this book. So, you know, I'm excited and I'm glad to see you all. And Miss Tate, I'm especially interested in listening to hear your stories, and I'm really appreciative that you were willing to do this. I know Mike can be kind of D-Mike and pushy sometimes. So, you know, yeah, and that's why we love him, right? Because he speaks truth to power, and we need him on the board. So we're really grateful to see you and hear your voice in this context. So that's all I have.
Thanks, Nick. Oh, here we go. So we have had a few years as a board of working to figure out what we are, what we're doing, why we're doing it. And there are many reasons why we were in this situation to begin with, to begin to really wrestle with our identity. And then 2020 happened. And then the summer of 2020 happened, and the murder of George Floyd, amongst many of the other atrocities that were brought sort of to bear in the wake of COVID, it really expedited this reckoning within our board and within what we do as professionals and what we represent. And so last summer, we took to critiquing our mission, and this is on our website. Our mission is in red. So if you took out all the white text and put it all together, that would be our mission. But this is a way that an exercise that we took on to really begin to be introspective about what we're doing as an organization, what we are championing, what we're cheering on, what we are upholding as good. And we really had to look at that and look at the stuff we were saying, well, this is good because it's a new, pretty, shiny building and its architecture and its design, without really sort of paying attention to the effects and the ripple effects of what development, especially in a city like New Orleans post-Katrina, is and what it does. So we kind of marinated in this for half a year. And then got to a place where we could really have a clear mind about what it is we wanted to do and what direction we wanted to go in. So we wrote this. The stories of our city, of our communities, and of the people who make our city need to be celebrated, amplified, and documented. Not only will they be seen and heard, but they will enrich, they will empower, they will most definitely challenge, and most of all, they will inspire. So the New Orleans Architecture Foundation, building a more complete story of New Orleans. And so this is our new mission. This is our new direction. This book club, the book club that we did last year, are baby steps in that direction of not only becoming a more informed board, but hopefully producing more informed programs that I think get us to a different place.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Nick, and thank you, Mike. As we've endeavored moving forward in leading really thoughtful, committed, and what we feel appropriate programming coming out of the NOF, we've also wanted to set a set of community expectations. We know that in this environment, we want to create one that is a learning environment. We want to create a space where we can navigate how power is configured, identity is lived, and oppression, and conversely, privilege is experienced. So in this time that we're spending together as members of this book club, we're going to agree to a set of community expectations. First, we're going to recognize, right, that systemic and structural racism has fundamentally shaped our nation. We're going to rely on the narratives of the Yellow House to broaden our comprehension and discussion contributions. We're going to acknowledge that even though race is a social construct, it still has real world implications. So we're going to be explicit about race and racism. We're not going to use coded language like I'm colorblind. And we're going to point it out respectfully when it occurs. And we're going to listen deeply. Again, this is about creating a space where we are learning from one another. So we're going to be kind, we're going to be mindful, we're going to show vulnerability because that really helps us listen intently. It helps us move through the discomfort. And we're only going to speak twice after another person has spoken first. Also, intersectionality, using that as a lens to create a mindful space so we can reflect on how we've all been affected by systemic and structural racism. And then what is required of us moving forward, right? What is the future work that is required of us? And then we're going to ask, when we're unsure about a word, an issue, or a dilemma, we're going to ask, and we're going to allow others to learn what we already know. And lastly, we're going to respect confidentiality. So we're going to take the stories from tonight, but leave the names, all of them except one. Thank you. So with that said, before we really dive deep into the presentation, we would love everyone to verbally commit to the set of expectations. So if you could unmute yourself, give your name, your location, just say that you agree on the set of expectations. And if there's anything you want to add to that, feel free. And just take 90 seconds because we have a room full of people. Yes,
I'm gonna call on everyone just so that we're expeditious about this. I'm just gonna go by my list on here, and I'm gonna skip over anybody that's been introduced already. Lydia Charles.
Good evening. My name is Lydia Charles. I'm here with Leona and Mike and Melissa and team. I'm in Jackson, Mississippi, and I agree to what was stated. Thank you, Melissa.
Ruth Hickox.
Ruth Hickox Litchfield. I'm here in New Orleans, and I absolutely agree. And I really do honor that people will catch me using incorrect language and call me on it.
I believe it's Sean Meenan.
Hi, it's Sean Meenan. I'm in Brooklyn. I agree as well.
Good to have you here, Sean.
It's good to be here. Thank you.
Kim.
I'm Kim. I'm in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and I agree.
Sarah Ash.
I'm Sarah Ash. I'm in Middlebury, Vermont, and I'm thrilled to be here, and I certainly agree and hope I'll be able to learn much more than a great deal. Thank you.
And I am Tom Dunn, her husband, and the father of Sarah Bush. And we lived in New Orleans for 35 years, so we do have a tie, and we accept certainly your covenants.
Thanks. Welcome from New Orleans. Deidre?
Deidre Meredith, here in New Orleans, and supporting T. Leona and the team.
Tremaine.
Hi, Tremaine Knighton Riley. I'm here in New Orleans as well as part of the LTFC team. I definitely agree to the covenant that has been put forth.
Stephen, poor old nerd.
Stephen Joseph in Marrero. I agreed to all the terms and looking forward to season 2.
Good to see you, Stephen. Welcome back. Emily Bullock.
Hi, Mike. I'm Emily Bullock. I'm here in New Orleans, and I accept the terms that Melissa spelled out and excited about reading this book with you all too.
Wes. Oh, wait, already. Wes and Beth already got Kathleen.
I'm here. Yes, I'm here, Marrero. I agree.
Thanks, Kathleen. Sybil Reed.
He might be out.
Dejan Jordan. Oh, Sybil.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was muted still. I agree.
Dejan.
Dejan, I'm here in New Orleans, and I agree.
Good. So that's everybody. It's a good turnout. We have a few more registered. We'll see if we can't get them wrangled in. But let's get back to the show.
Thank you, everyone. So very quickly, this is just an opening for our book club discussion, The Yellow House. So if you guys have yet to read it and have yet to go to Community Book Center and pick up your copy, we just wanted to really talk about why this book. It is a really special book. It is a multi-generational story about Sarah Broom's family history in New Orleans East. And this is a photo of Sarah. It's a story of a yellow house, right? A modest yellow house that Sarah's mother bought in 1961, right? So the American dream, right? And we wonder why houses hold such importance. And as the story unfolds, it's about her and what happens to her family in the years leading up to Hurricane Katrina, and then the aftermath, the Katrina diaspora, the devastation and the displacement of the Broom family, and quite frankly, about our country itself. And it's really an extraordinary story. I think I would use the word epic. And when I say the book felt epic, I mean epic. It's like the Iliad, right? The story set in the Trojan War of the 10-year siege of the city of Troy, and then the Odyssey, right? Focused on the 10-year journey back to home. What it felt like. And what was so interesting is that in the earlier chapters, Sarah talks about her bad eyesight and her dependence on glasses to see. And she would play with the fact that she could be blind at will by just removing her glasses. And so really she's Homer and Homer is her, right? So Homer was the presumed author of the Iliad and the Odyssey, and Homer was also blind. And so that is Homer and that is Sarah. They are the blind sage telling the story of devastation and loss. So I'm just going to leave it there for now. So more on these ideas, more on the Homeric stories, and we'll hold that for our next book club meeting. And we'll talk about the pages that we'll be reading towards the end of this. But yes, we are excited. So with that said, we want to focus our attention back on that first slide, right? And what we were seeing. I will say I'd love to start with saying that the civil rights movement brought forth many heroes. Yet something very special when we get to focus on the women that emerged from that movement as freedom fighters. And Miss Leona Tate is just that. She is our living hero. Her story is a story of commitment and bravery and leadership in the face of a hostile and a violent, segregated society here in New Orleans. And her impact has been felt by generations. We proudly stand on her shoulders. And in the name of freedom and civil rights, we thank you, Miss Leona. We're so thrilled to have you here today.
Thank you for having me.
And I need to take a breath with that one. So if I may ask, going back to this photo, you had mentioned, this brings you back to a certain day and certain time. And you also talked about, and maybe Mike, the next slide, many folks believed that this painting was of a single girl on a single day at a specific school, right? The Williams Franz School right down the street in 1960. That was about 2 miles away from what was happening with you, correct?
Correct. It was probably 15 to 20 minutes behind the time that myself, Tessie, Prevost, and Gail, Etienne were allowed to enter McDonogh 19. we entered without much resistance, but the streets were crowded. We did not have to be in the midst of the crowd because of the police on horseback that I understood was so well trained because of holding crowds back from the parade. But arriving to the building at 6 years old, that's what it seemed like, a parade was coming. And I felt like that's what was happening because I knew that a parade formed on that street. We were looking for the same thing everybody else was looking for, to be outside in the midst of the crowd, not even realizing that the crowd was all white. But I was told differently that no, it's not Mardi Gras. It's something else. So we did arrive at the building, and we did get to enter. And once we entered, we were told to take a seat on a bench across the hall from the principal's office. And backing up to the picture, that's Gail, Etienne in the car behind the marshal, and that's myself walking with the purse and Gail behind it. But this picture is us exiting the building, not entering the building. We did sit on that bench in the office, by the office, I would say half the day. I mean, it was over 3 hours that we sat there. The three of us played hopscotch on the tiles of the floor because we were bored for just sitting there. We did later on get placed in a classroom. And I can remember entering the classroom, which was a full body of students, trying to speak to a little white girl. And it was like I was invisible. She didn't answer me. She didn't look my way. She didn't do anything. But then all of a sudden, like a whirlwind, the parents started coming and pulling their kids out of class. And that left Tessie, Gail, and myself, the only three left in there at about 3 o'clock. And we were the only three in that building for a year and a half. With every teacher in place, every class, just the three of us in our one class. It was quite different from what we had experienced before we got to McDonogh 19. I can remember not being very happy at my old school because it was overcrowded. So I was rather comfortable. Not being around so many people at one time, but not understanding that we were really confined and alone. The three of us, were together every day, same classroom. We had a very good first grade teacher. She was very protective, very motherly. So I know Miss Myers probably caught a lot of flack in her community when she left for the day. Our classroom was our classroom. We didn't leave that area of the building to do anything. We were never allowed to go in the yard. We couldn't eat from the school. We couldn't drink out of the water fountains. They were turned off. The windows were papered up. We couldn't see outside. No one could see inside. Our play area was right outside of the classroom under a stairwell where we would play our games or board games or jacks and maybe eat our lunch there if we didn't eat it at our desk. But we were confined to that one part of the building for months that I can remember. But we were comfortable. We never complained. We never complained. Later on, down, I guess, years later, in fact, it was in 2010, I found out that the marshals spent their day inside of the building. We didn't see them during the day. We only saw them when we arrived to school and when we were brought home in the evening. And once we were brought home in the evening, the New Orleans Police Department took over and was, secured our households. But school was a normal day. It was strictly work. We were not allowed to bring home books for a long time. But Miss Myers really gave us an excellent first grade education. Second grade started out the same way. We were still alone. We had a new teacher, and we were on the second floor of the building, but I don't remember which class it was. But the teacher was a little different. She was a good teacher, but she just taught us. She wasn't as motherly as Miss Myers were. By then, we were allowed to bring books home, and I still don't remember being able to enter the cafeteria at that time. But after the Christmas holidays, we were joined by 25 other students, and only 2 were white. And I think that was when we were allowed to go in the yard, just right outside the door. And that was an exciting experience for us to be able to play on the playground. But that was the end of that year, was the end of us being at McDonogh 19. McDonogh 19 had become an all-Black school then. And it was the rule was to keep us in a white school by the NAACP. So then we would, I don't know if Mike has photos of anything after this one.
Well, you know, I would say, oh yes, please, Mike.
On November 14th, 1960, 3 of the girls entered McDonogh 19. They encountered mobs of spitting, cursing, stone-throwing whites.
When we arrived, school was in full session. So then we started noticing that parents were taking their kids out of school. And that really made us think that they were going outside the.
So that is a clip from a documentary that Deidre have dug up at Louisiana Public Television. And we'll share that link with everybody, but it's a really interesting documentary from the 80s about the New Orleans Four, Leona, Gail, Tessie, and Ruby, and that day in 1960.
And we certainly urge you to take the time, we'll put it in the chat box, to view the link on your, no worries, view the link on your own. And you know, it is hard to wrap your brain around, but it's a critical must. And I will say that after just this kind of short intro, the Norman Rockwell painting rather, has taken on a new significant meaning. And here I think we see him in the creation process. But I know that the next slide kind of gives an example of the fact that this was not just a single little girl. Hi, baby Liz. But it was actually a composite of many brave little girls across the city taking a stand and integrating, right, community schools across the city. And I believe that these young girls were models, and the one that you see in the photo is a composite of all 3 of them. And Mike, if you go maybe forward, there we go. Miss Leona, who are we seeing here? With you in the middle.
You got me in the middle. Tessie Prevost to your left, and it's Gail Etienne to your right.
And may I ask, is everyone still with us?
Everyone is still with us. The 3 of us were just together last weekend. Tessie lives in La Place, and Gail has now moved since Katrina to Tulsa, Oklahoma. Yes, but everyone is still with us, thank God. Yes.
Absolutely. Mike, can you tell us a little bit about what we're seeing?
So this is a photograph on the left from March 9th, 2020. The week the world changed, but Monday, not Friday. It was the Monday, the week the world changed, and we had no idea what was coming. It was a pretty happy day. This is Gail, Tessie, and Leona, and some of us in the background. I think you can see my shoes. At the groundbreaking of the start of construction and redevelopment of McDonogh 19. My company and Leona's foundation are 50-50 partners and owners of this building. And we are redeveloping it into, well, I'll let Leona tell the story. This is Leona's story, not mine.
We are redeveloping it to, well, the first floor will be the building is the Tate, Etienne, and Prevost, which is the three of our last names, Interpretive Center, which will feature civil rights issues of New Orleans, the desegregation of public schools, and we're going to highlight some other movements that happened during that time. We're also going to bring in People's Institute that host their workshops for undoing racism. And we'll have other programming that we're working on at this moment, but that'll be all on the first floor. Second and third floor, which I think this is the second floor to our right, will be 25 affordable units for 55 or older. And hopefully they'll be ready soon, because people are knocking at my door as we speak.
We are currently under construction. As you know, we all went through COVID with construction, and we also went through one of the worst hurricane seasons in a while, probably since 2005 or 2008. And we made it through. We're a little bit, it slowed us down a little bit, but we are moving. We're actually moving really, really fast now. There are a lot of folks on the job site. And we think by the early summer, the building will be complete. And we think by sometime in the fall, the first few exhibits will be up, and the Interpretive Center will be open for visitors. And I threw in a couple early, these are kind of dated now, but early sort of vignettes of what we are looking at as far as the Interpretive Center, which will be on that ground floor in those classrooms. This is the classroom at the girls spent their first grade in. The large space on the ground floor, and one of the other exhibits that we don't really have images of in here is the principal's office, outside of the principal's office exhibit, which will be the first thing you see. And we believe we have the funding in place to get the principal's office exhibit and the classroom exhibit complete by fall. So if you go to the TEP Center, tepcenter.org, or Leona Tate Foundation for Change, and you can link to the TEP Center, you can find more information about that. We are always excited about donations and getting the word out. Still in the process of raising more money. The reason why I'm talking is because Leona doesn't like to talk about this, so I'm gonna toot her own horn and get this free plug out there for her. And so I think with that, what we wanted to be able to do was to open the discussion up for question and answers, because we know that there'll be a lot of questions about this project and about Leona's story. I'll start the questions off. so that we can get going. Leona, can you talk about that morning before you got picked up by the marshals and what was happening and what was talked about and who was there at the house?
When I was awakened that morning, my house was filled with, mind you, we had a little one shotgun house, very small house, but it was filled with family and friends. And you would have thought it was Christmas because everybody was doing something. It's like if you were preparing something for the Christmas holiday, and seemed to be in a very good spirit, and everybody was happy and going about whatever was going on for the day. And I knew I was going to a new school, but I had no clue why. But when that black car pulled up in front of our door, the house got real quiet. I can remember the silence today, and it seems like I knew then something was about to happen. Still not understanding what was going to happen, but before I walked out of that door, my mother said, when you get in the car, you sit to the back of the seat. Do not put your face out of the window. I tell everybody obedience played a big part of what we had to do because we had to listen. And that was part of me listening. So I took the ride, what seemed to be just a few blocks, where I was walking 10 or 11 blocks to my old school. And we came in from the rear of the building. And when we turned toward the front on St. Claude Avenue, I mean, it was just a mass of people they were just all over, you know. And I'm thinking the police holding the people back so that the car that I'm in wouldn't hit them. And that wasn't the case. Had no idea that they were trying to get to me. No idea. No idea. But the three of us all pulled up at the same time. So they timed that well. And we all entered the building at the same time. Yes, they did.
Any questions from the audience?
Next question.
I'd also want to reintroduce Lydia Charles and Tremaine Knight and Riley, who are part of the Leona Tate Foundation of Change in the TEP Center, and they are the folks really working alongside Leona to make this vision a reality. So I wanted to give them some time to talk about the project also.
I have a question. Ms. Leona, it's an honor just to be here having this conversation with you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was wondering about the support that you got from your family in your neighborhood after you got home each night. Do you have any brothers and sisters? But did you talk about what was going on with your parents, with your neighbors? What was that like?
I have a younger sister. We're 3 years apart. When I got home in the evening, you know, it wasn't, if it wasn't too much that I could do. It wasn't no more playing outside. It wasn't anything. It was straight inside the door. Just some of my family would come over just to make sure we were okay, and make sure if I had homework that it was getting done. And because we were well prepared before we even got there. But it was normal to me once I got home, just not being able to roam around outside as we were used to doing. Not that my mother let us go too far anyway, because she was very overprotective. But I just remember it being so guarded. You know, I could see the policemen in the neighborhood. I could lay in my bed at night and see the flashlights going through, you know, the alleyway just to make sure that everything was okay. So that was a little different. I think that was a little bit kind of scared of them more than anything else.
We lost your audio, Leona.
You hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. From what I understand, to get to our neighborhoods, it was an act of Congress. If we didn't know ahead of time if somebody was coming, then they wouldn't be allowed to come.
And how long did that last?
Oh, I'm not sure. I'm sure the first year. I don't remember it's the second year, but it was most of the first year.
Could you talk a little bit about your move to Sims?
Second grade, well, you know, our last year down to 19, but I don't know if we knew how far in advance we were leaving McDonogh 19, but Sims, we didn't have the U.S. Marshals, we didn't have the police protection. We endured a lot. We did face the crowds closer than we did at McDonogh 19 going to school. That's someplace I don't wish on anybody. It was horrific. Children just was so mean, and what made it so bad is teachers coerced the students to say things or to do things, and we weren't comfortable going to cafeteria to eat because either somebody was going to spit in your food or they were going to knock it out of your hand. Never go to the restroom alone. Never. It was impossible. We was always told that we had to stick together. But I think that's where we created a bond that today cannot be broken. Everything we did, we had to do it together. Our safe haven at Sims was outside under a tree that had a little stump where we used to sit. They would play ball, they would bat their balls in that direction. One teacher in particular, I can remember, would always pass us with her students, and once they got to us, they would take a Kleenex or a handkerchief and put over their noses as if we had an odor. If they accidentally touch us, they would run to wash it off because they were afraid our color was going to wash off. So, Sims was somewhere I don't wish on anybody. Hate to talk about it.
I had a question, Miss Leona, about how were the four of you selected or chosen, or what was the, how did it end up being you? How did that happen?
There was an application placed in the newspaper for children in the 9th ward. And from what I understand, it was 140 applications that were turned in. It was 5 families that was selected, but only 4.
We lost your volume again. Leona. We lost you again.
I'm sorry. So, what did you hear?
We're losing your audio, Leona.
Okay. Let me start over. It was the application that was placed in the paper for children in the 9th ward. All right, and it was like 100 kids.
Leona, would you turn off your camera so we can get your audio? Oh, we
Can you
lost
hear me
her
now?
completely. Yes.
Yeah, better.
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
You can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now, Leona.
You can hear me now? Okay, all right. So it was 140 applications were turned in from the 9th Ward, but 5 were selected, but only 4 participated. We were psychologically tested. I can remember it was at the school board. I later found out that I can remember answering questions too. It was a white lady and a white man. We were only 5 at that time. So I know we couldn't write anything. So we might have, but we didn't. And that's how the selection was made.
What wasn't that one of the students was not allowed because her dad did not live in the home?
Right. The criteria was high. Yeah, one of the girls couldn't come because she didn't have a dad in the household, and there were no boys selected at all. No boys. I don't know all of the rules that they stipulated, but I would like to. So if anybody get them, send it to me.
Lydia?
That's actually a wonderful segue a little bit because with the TEP Center, this is trying to find out information in history that has not been put in the public face, in the public eye. One of the Rockwellian painting is called The Problem We Live With. That's the title of it. And so that's kind of also with TEP. We're talking about civil rights. We're talking about how history is taught. We're talking about social justice. We're talking about anti-racism, because those are the issues that we're all living with. And the other thing that I'll talk more about, both Tremaine and I will talk more later about ownership. The fact that Olympic and the foundation owned this building, that Leona owns her building that she integrated in the same way that the Yellow House. There's a mother who decided she needed to buy this building in the 9th Ward. And the last thing I want to say is the evolution of activism and how history is taught. Mike and I have talked about this. We both work in historic preservation. You all are architects. Challenging the idea of what historic preservation is, what is worthy to be kept, and why. A building may not have columns, but the story could be really important. So that's also part of the TEP Center's mission, is to look at all these different elements because it's the problem we live with. And evolution evolves. Rockwell painted that for Look magazine as the cover because in 1964, when it was released, the girls had already integrated in 1960 and nothing was being done. And he needed to get that into the front lines and onto the coffee tables of white America. How do you best do that? So choosing the isolated girl, I mean, this is all psychological, as Leona was talking about. So evolution changes. What do we need in 2021? We need a building in the lower 9th that the girl who integrated it now owns it and is challenging the idea of historic preservation. So I think that's really going to go back and forth with the Yellow House. That's going to be part of our conversation moving forward.
Any other questions? Comments?
Hi, this is Dee.
Hey, Deidre.
So a part of raising more awareness of the work that the team at Leona Tate Foundation for Change is doing is this year, on November 14th, 2020 was the 60th anniversary of desegregation. And originally there was a plan for a 3-day weekend of events. And one of those main events was going to be a special night where we would do the tribute concert to the New Orleans 4 legacy. So moving forward with the New Orleans 4 legacy project, we were able to produce this year, November 14th, a Proclamation Day ceremony at Gail Hall, where the New Orleans 4 was honored and finally given the key to the city of New Orleans by LaToya Cantrell and the city council has proclaimed New Orleans 4-Day on November the 14th, New Orleans 4-Day forever. Civil rights rarely does celebrate the woman at the same level as they do men in the civil rights movement. It's very rare that you see the Black woman celebrated on that level of John Lewis or on Martin Luther King. We do have that one, Rosa Parks, but what these 4 girls did on November 14, 1960, and furthermore, they integrated each school level up. They didn't just integrate elementary school, they integrated junior high school and they integrated high school. It was an incremental strategic plan by the NAACP. If they did the integration of all levels at one time, it would have been a debacle. So this was a strategic plan to start young, because if you guys are familiar with integration, we had the Little Rock 9 who were older, they were in high school, but they thought for it to happen down in the Jim Crow Deep South, they thought we should start at a younger age and incrementally integrate each school level up. So there came a moment where Leona had to leave Tessie and Gail and be sent over to William France, which was in the upper 9th Ward where Ruby was, because the integration over in the upper 9th Ward wasn't happening as rapid as it was down in the lower 9. And so T. Leona's family moved, and so therefore she winded up going to William France in 4th grade and was there with Ruby. And then once they got older, they went to junior high school together, and Ruby and Leona, along with a few other African-American students, because the movement was starting to grow, they integrated Kohn, K-O-H-N, junior high school together. And then as they got older and the movement started getting bigger and parents started feeling, more confident as those girls kept holding the line, they started sending their children to school. And by the time they were ready to go to high school to integrate, Ruby and Leona and Gail met up again at Francis T. Nichols. And at Francis T. Nichols, I think that the movement had grown. I think there were maybe 1,000 other African-American students that joined them in integrating Francis T. Nichols. And at the time, the mascot was the Confederate Rebels. By the time they became juniors in high school, they became the predominant student body. The African students wanted to change the mascot. And when they voted to change that mascot to the Nichols Bobcats, a riot broke out at Nichols. And I do believe that T. Leona can speak to testimony of how that riot took place. And, T. Leona, would you like to let them know about that part?
I just remember walking in the building one day. We all would start our day off in the school's cafeteria. And when I opened the door to enter the cafeteria, all I could see was chairs flying. It was just a total mess. I backed out of the way. And as I was backing out of the way to get out of the way, police were coming in the building on horseback. So it really had gotten serious. We had already been having fighting, but once the request was made for the mascot to be changed, it really got bad. So then we experienced white flight again, and Nichols was just about predominantly Black in my senior year, I would think, in my senior year. But the mascot did get changed in 11th grade. But it was just something to just think about what could have happened at 6 years old. And it wasn't a pretty sight. It really wasn't a pretty sight. I was in class and I can remember the police coming and they were bringing me home. I guess my mother and them had called to get me out of that environment at that time. So I was home for about a week before I went back to school,
And so the New Orleans for Legacy project, you can go to NewOrleans4legacy.com You can see the pictures from the Proclamation Day ceremony.
It's in the chat.
The link is in the chat.
Oh, it's in the chat. You did it. Okay. And furthermore, if any of you are familiar with tokenism, and the direct result of tokenism is historical negation, which is why most people know Ruby Bridges, but don't really know about the other three. And so that is why I thought it was important to create the New Orleans 4 Legacy Project, because that is who they were referred to, synonymous to the Little Rock 9, synonymous to the Tuskegee Airmen, synonymous to the Central Park 5. They were known as the New Orleans 4 Negro girls who were escorted by U.S. Marshals. And my goal and my mission is to make sure I revive not only the story of the New Orleans 4, but also make sure that they are recognized by the President of the United States, that they too should deserve and get the Presidential Medal of Honor, because not just one should have it, all 4 of them should have received that medal. So it is my mission, and I hope that you all will join me in the support of getting them to Washington so that Leona, Tessie, and Gail will receive the Presidential Medal of Honor for everything they've done and what they continue to do. And so that is it. That's all I have to say. If you have any questions.
Hear, hear. Hear, hear. Miss Leona, I would love to hear, what was the seed? How was the seed planted? And what was it to have you make the jump of, I'm gonna own the space that was a symbol, right, of such a real but dark period of your life? How did you make that jump to say that you were going to own it and you were going to transform it, and it was going to be a space of healing and reconciliation? And yeah, I'll stop there.
I'm still figuring out. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I heard. Okay. The seed was being invited to different schools, and the children in the schools don't know the history of what happened right here in New Orleans. And I want to say it's a few seeds, because for years I didn't talk about this. I didn't want to talk about it. My children didn't even know. And then coming back after Katrina, well, Tessie and Gail and I always talked about it, and we were always sentimental about that building. And in 2004 is when it really was closed because of low academics. And we were asked to help to try to keep it open, but by the time we were asked to help, the school board had already made the decision to close it. So after Katrina, when we were allowed to come back in the lower ninth ward, it was a must for me to go and see what the building looked like. And it looked fine. It looked like it could be, knowing that I can, that only one school was going to come back to the area. It looked like something could be done to open up this building as a school. But I was first asked, well, what's your foundation about? It was never my intention to start a foundation. I was just trying to get another school opened. And so we got the foundation together, and I was assured that McDonogh 19 wouldn't be a school again. They didn't know what they wanted to do with the building, but I knew it needed to be something educational, something to have the education of the civil rights, the history of what happened here. And that was my I guess my seed. And then when President Obama got elected, that was like, oh well, it's my time now. I think I need to move on this. And I felt like something could be done. And everybody I talked to kept saying, nothing's coming back to the ninth ward, but if we don't put something back there, nobody's going to be able to come back. So I finally met a limbic, and that was my push. That was the first person, which was Ben Warnke with, and from that day on, everything just started to move. It was just my time. It just started to happen, and it was happening rapidly, because it looked like it took us 10 years just to get to that point. And I'm in shock. I'm still in shock. So But that was the seed, Melissa, that pushed my will.
And just to give some perspective, that took another 5 years from that point to where we are today.
Yes.
One of the things that I would like to share, and that Leona didn't share, is that during that 10-year period, it was not just an isolated, we're working on getting control of 5909 St. Claude Avenue. The foundation has just been so much more than that to a lot of people. One of our first service projects and just missions was right after when we started was to do we did legal clinics for people who needed to do succession paperwork for, you know, because all of the people who had lost their land right after Katrina, and they needed to go through that process. So we have really been always, as a foundation, really community responsive. So whatever the community, the lower Ninth Ward, but the larger New Orleans community had a need for, we tried to fulfill it in some way, shape, or form. And, you know, whether that was providing youth programming or assistance through SNAP benefits, and Leona could say, you name it, we have done it. So, and I think that's an important testament as well. Leona, you were saying something? I'm sorry.
I was just saying food pantry.
Yes. Yes. And I think this is the first year that we'd have not had any type of summer program for youth. And that was really difficult for us because since 2009, every summer we've done something to really bring the youth in and have them to share their stories. Because that's one of the things that's really important to Leona, is having a place for you to learn their history, but also take part and be a part of history. So, and that's something that we wanted to expand at the TEP Center as well.
I have had college students coming to us to get information to write their papers on the integration of McDonogh 19. And they have to go in so many different places to put that paper together. And I hope to provide the information in one place. You know, all of the history can be in one place. I mean, how hard can that be? How hard can that be? That's Lydia's job.
No, I was going to say, Leona, I was like, is she going to ask? Is she going to ask? So 2 things. Number 1, go to tepcenter.org or go to leonatatefoundation.org. The building, as Mike had said, is not going to be open until the summer, but we are taking in money now. I mean, just think of Leona's technological capacity. We need to get computers. We need to get desks. I mean, the building has been the foundations and donors have been very generous. It's much easier to raise money for construction and for buildings. Operations and programming is much more complicated. At tepcenter.org, I also have an email address if there's a particular program that you want to learn about. If you have somebody who's interested in sponsoring something very finite, given what your interests are or your friends' interests are, or the millionaire you meet next week, contact me. And I'll be doing that every time that we meet, talking about Yellow House. Because yeah, we need money.
I will say, as a collective, right, of designers and builders and architects, as folks who are envisioning the future, it is so important for us to understand the power of the work that we do, and most importantly, it's holding space. And it is our duty and responsibility to understand the stories that come forward from the spaces that we are holding, again, whether we are preserving or building anew. And so this partnership with the Leona Tate Foundation for Change is so critical in helping us make that bridge and leap. And as well as we continue to read The Yellow House, it just is a reminder of how important it is to understand the stories in which the places that we are holding, tell us.
Yeah. And so with that, I'll say that on page, I think it's page 23, if you haven't started reading the book, page 23 is the mention, or the sort of where Sarah Broom talks about November 14th, 1960. And that was an obvious sort of connection between our book club and partnering with Leona and Tremaine and Lydia. It also helps that we all know each other and working on this big project together. But yeah, I think that's super exciting. And if there aren't any more questions or comments, I think we can start to wrap things up. If Leona and Tremaine and Lydia, if you guys have any kind of closing comments, we have 2 more things to discuss once that happens, but I want to give you all the kind of final say before we get to those.
So I'll go first. One thing that I will just say, and because I want Leona to have the last word, I'm excited about the book club because I haven't read the book yet, and I've been hearing so much about it, and I'm really excited about the discussions that we'll have as we progress through it. So that's it.
Yeah, I'm excited too. This is something new to me. I've never really joined a book club like this, and I don't know if everybody on here got an architecture experience, but if you do, just holler at Mike. But I want to thank everybody for listening to this story. I try to tell the children, I said, this is a sad story, but I want you to take it and make something positive out of it. Don't make nothing, don't do anything negative about it. Just take and make everything positive about it. But that's all I can say. Thank y'all so much.
So let me get to our last couple slides, some house clearing items. So we're going to meet next on April 20th, which is actually a month and a week, because the week before is April 13th. And I hope that I'll have our taxes done by then, but I'm not sure. And I just don't want to schedule a meeting during tax week, just because I don't want to affect our turnout that much. So we're gonna read a little bit more this first time than the next 2 meetings. So we're gonna meet 3 more times on the Yellow House, and so we're gonna try and read movement 1 and 2, and you'll understand that when you get the book. There's 4 movements, and we'll meet back on April 20th. And hopefully have some really lively and sort of informative discussion about the book and about our city and about places in our city that don't always get their story told. Anne, you had a
Leona, you asked if everyone had architectural experience. This is your neighbor, Ann Meyer. And I am not an architect, but I am a fan of architecture. And as you know, I'm a huge fan of yours. And I'm so excited to see the team you put together with Lydia Charles and Tremaine Knight. It is just making me feel so good to see you involved. And besides that, you're going to get really good at book clubs, because we're going to get you in on the One Book, One New Orleans as well. And I'm the one who is going to be doing some sort of event in the lower 9th Ward for the Yellow House. And I know where I want to have that.
Yeah. So that's a great segue, Anne. Go ahead. Sorry. So that's a great segue. So Leona sent me an email a few months ago when we had decided to do the Yellow House and to do it with Leona. And she sent me an email and said, "Is this your book club?" And it was not our book club. It was One Book, One New Orleans' book club. And they had decided to do the Yellow House also. Now, One Book, One New Orleans is like a book club on steroids. They do an entire year of programming based on one book. And as the name of their organization sort of says, what they're trying to do is sort of unite and connect the entire city around one book. And so every month they have programming. They've had one program already, and that is recorded on their website, so you can find it to listen to it. Just like this one's being recorded, and you'll have access to it. But their next event is going to be Thursday this week at 6 o'clock. And it's actually History of New Orleans East. And we have one of the panelists in our audience lurking back there, Dejan Jordan, otherwise known as DJ. And he's very embarrassed because I'm outing him that he's a very important person in our community and a very important person in our audience today. But if you can see the folks here, Sierra Chenier was a guest speaker at one of our book club sessions last year. Council member Cindy Nguyen, writer Maurice Carlos Ruffin, who will be the moderator, and Bao Nguyen is a resident of New Orleans, like Versailles in the East. And I think this is going to be an extremely interesting conversation about New Orleans East. And really, I think one of the things that has really made me stop and think about places differently, like the East, was when Sierra talked about the East that she knew, the East that she grew up in, and not the East that I knew post-Katrina. The East that I knew was only post-Katrina because I didn't know New Orleans before then. And I knew New Orleans East as a place that was badly damaged by floodwaters, that didn't get reinvestment, that was struggling before Katrina, was made worse by Katrina, and never saw it as a place of good memories and happiness and growing up. And Sierra really sort of stopped me in my tracks about thinking about places and thinking about the people from those places. And so I'm super excited to watch this. I'm unfortunately going to have to, we have a board meeting at that same time. So Nick, if we want to change it, we could do that. But it's also being recorded. We can watch it. And we're going to partner. We've had a meeting with One Book, One New Orleans, and we're going to partner on an event in the fall. And hopefully we can have it at the TEP Center. And hopefully we can do some really, really fun programming together. So that was my last, it's my last slide, my last plug. And I want to thank everybody for joining us. And especially I want to thank Leona and Tremaine and Lydia and Melissa for a pretty wonderful evening. So with that being said, we will talk to you all soon. I will send out reminder emails to everybody, and we will see you all again post-tax day.
Unless it gets extended, but that's okay, Mike.
Right.
Thank you, Nick.
Yeah, I just want to thank all of you for being on, and also that we're not selfish, and we love to share this information with all of the people that you love and know. So please spread Mike's emails around as much as you can. We definitely find the more voices, the better the gumbo. So I look forward to hearing from all of you again, and seeing you on the 20th.
All right, everybody.
Thank you. Mhm.
Thank you again, Miss Leona.
Thank you, Melissa.